With that, let me call up Marianne McGarry and her panel to talk about jobs in this marketplace. We've got a group of experts to help you understand what's going on. Marianne?
Thank you, Mark. Our topic today is jobs, 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 an important component in any recovery. First, I'd like to just point out a couple statistics and important differences between this recession and past recessions since World War II. First, we have the longest long-term unemployment after any recession since World War II. Second, we have the highest underemployment ever since World War II. And last, we are seeing a big rise in unemployment for workers without a degree, with a degree. So to share their perspective and insight on the current job market in San Diego, we have three great speakers today. Our first panelist is Jim Waring, who is the co-founder and chair of Clean Tech, a nonprofit organization formed to support the expansion and of clean technology. Jim?
Good morning, everyone. And again, when Mark asked me to speak today, he thought it would be interesting to people in the real estate sector, where I've, by the way, spent the vast majority of my career, to hear about what's going on in the clean technology sector that we hear so much about. So I'm going to give you a brief summary. Now, for those that would like to get into it a little more deeply, there are two reports that I would recommend to you. The first is called Clean Tech Job Trends 2010. And it's a national and international overview, very readable report that you can find at cleanedge.com. Cleanedge.com. Excellent report. The other is a local report that was done by the San Diego Foundation called Economic Vitality Clean Jobs in San Diego. And that was published last fall, and again gives a lot of data, both about the data and the trends within the sector itself, but also some of the political views in the regions. So that's also available from their website. And again, as somebody who's been in the real estate business and in the law business and is now just a volunteer chair of Clean Tech, one of the things that I say to people is I don't like to draw too much distinction between clean tech jobs and other jobs. I mean, at the end of the day, a job is a job. But one of the things that's clear, especially if you read the Clean Edge report, is that for this country, we need to accept that clean tech, it's not a niche, it's not some marginalized feel-good activity. It's really the future. And in the same way that successful businesses and policymakers responded in the past to new technologies and new methods of doing business, the successful businesses and communities of the future will do the same thing with clean enterprises as opportunities for jobs and economic growth. And San Diego's well positioned for that. I mean, there's very good news about our region. We were, by Clean Edge and their report that studied the top 15 metropolitan areas in the United States for their clean tech cluster vitality, we were ranked number 7. There's an organization called the Global Clean Tech Cluster Association, which studies clusters around the world. We were also ranked number 7 in that one, which is interesting, but very good. Matter of fact, we recently had a launch of that association here in San Diego. If you go to the cleantechsandiego.org website, you'll see a lot of the ramifications and positive things that have come from our efforts to develop this cluster in San Diego. We recently got an SBA grant to counsel businesses on clean technology practices. A year and a half ago, through a collaboration, we got $152 million of Krebs bonds, which really stimulated a lot of solar activity. We recently received an EDGE grant that is an education grant, in other words, to design curricula for the future. So these are very exciting things. Now, what are some of the numbers? At CleanTech San Diego, we maintain a database, and again, definitions are fuzzy in this, so the numbers aren't that, a lot depends upon how you count. But we have 800 companies in our database in the San Diego region. 400 are innovators that create and invent the new technologies, and 400 are facilitators that install or implement. By far, our largest single cluster is in solar, where we have 180 companies. But I think it's exciting to hear some of the areas where San Diego, our region, is leading the country and in many places the world. And these are maybe some sectors you wouldn't otherwise think about. In energy, certainly renewable energy with solar and wind, and SDG&E is a fantastic partner in trying to do this with this portfolio standards. Energy storage, a lot of companies in that. Energy conservation and efficiency, really the low-hanging fruit. A lot of jobs, a lot of business potential, excellent return on investment. You can recover your investment in 2 and 3 years. Smart grid devices, electrical transmission, grid infrastructure, and biomass and sustainable biofuels. We're really on the cutting edge on transportation with hybrid electric vehicles and all-electric vehicles. 10 days ago, there was a press conference. General Electric picked San Diego as the pilot city for what was, after some process, called Smart City San Diego, which is going to do a number of projects. The first one is electric vehicle rollout. It's easy to put 100 cars in a community that are electric. How about if you put 100,000? What does it do to the grid? How does it work? And we're going to be the test bed. I believe a lot of opportunities, again, for jobs and companies. There are a lot of San Diego companies that deal in water and those types of products, biomimicry at our universities. So let me give you some job numbers. And again, I don't like numbers because they're not precise. But if you kind of do averages, people will say that we have 120,000 jobs in our region that are in this clean technology, clean tech cluster. Sandag's in the process of doing studies of each of these sectors I named to come up with more precise numbers. They've completed one on biofuels. And when you first hear these numbers, you'll think, well, these numbers are small. The total employment, direct and indirect, in the biofuel sector, this was about a year ago, and I know it's grown since then. They came up with the number 784. I'll use their exact numbers. The wages, direct wages, 44,600,000, and the overall economic output for the region, 108 million. Now, you might say, well, those aren't very big numbers in a community that has 1.9 million or so jobs in the gross regional product we do. But you have to look at it differently. That industry didn't even exist 5 years ago. Those numbers all would have been zero. And now we've got 780, and I really think it's many more thousands because there's been over $500 million of venture capital coming into this region in that one sector alone. So there's a lot of exciting momentum in each of our sectors. Now, and again, more important than the numbers are the trends, because we continue to increase the companies and the jobs. When we started doing our company survey that I mentioned, the 800 companies, when we started that 3 years ago, came up at 350. Now, I don't believe for a minute we've had 550 new companies. A lot of it's measurement. But it does constitute and point out the momentum, the positive momentum in our region. And I want to conclude my organizer remarks by saying at the same time all of these positive things are happening, we face a serious risk as a region. We have over 50 research institutes in San Diego County, one of the tightest clusters of research institutes in the world. We have fine research universities. So many of our companies that have been successful in San Diego over the last decades have come out of these institutions. And they all do basic research. Basic research that no matter how aggressive an investor any of us in this room might be, we would not invest in. That basic research has come from government funding. And that's all now being challenged. It's being challenged because we seem to, instead of talking about the things that we can do and the positive reaches that we want to have in our country, we're trying to talk about what we can't do and cut and cut and cut. And the cuts go at the low-hanging fruit. So if there's only one thing that I worry about in clean tech, and that is that the basic level of support, the policy level, the political will, and the infusion of money into basic research that will drive the industries of the future in the same way it drove the space program and drove the internet and other great innovations in American culture, are at risk. So I would urge everybody here, no matter what your political leanings might be, to make sure that your elected officials recognize that these investments in basic research time and time again, and believe me, our competitors, both nationally and especially internationally, are doing it every single day, These investments in basic research have historically gotten great returns for our country and will in the future, and we can't afford to stop it. But again, with that one sort of quasi-political comment aside, we've got a great positioning here in town, a lot of diverse stakeholders working on it. The job trends are good. The energy is good. Our regional branding is getting better and better. More publicity, better publicity. So if we continue to keep a dynamic national psyche, I think the sector will continue to grow.
Thank you, Jim. Our next panelist is Mel Katz, who's the owner of Manpower. Manpower is local franchise here. It specializes in temporary hiring. It's the largest franchise in the United States.
Thank you, Marianne. Good morning. I've been asked this morning to talk about the world of work and how the world of work is changing. We've all seen the unemployment numbers, and the unemployment numbers in San Diego are double-digit. Yet 2 weeks ago, the San Diego Union Tribune ran an ad that says thousands of jobs are going unfilled in the high-tech industries. We have just a huge skills shortage. There's plenty of people looking for work, but it's not the people with the right skills. Manpower's pioneered the talent industry over the last 60 years and really have done amazing work as far in helping people find work and really impacting people's lives and the community. We connect people with the dignity and the honor of the work and companies with the talent they need. Now, the staffing industry is a great barometer as far as the economy. We're the ones that get laid, our people get let go first from different companies before anyone would let go a permanent employee. And then when companies start getting busy again, we're the ones that get hired first, which usually follows with companies hiring their own perm people. We have seen this time that the recovery has happened. Towards the end of 2009, staffing companies were getting called, people were being brought back in, but being brought back in on project work. It wasn't, and it hasn't been yet, followed by permanent work. So 2010 was a great year for staffing industries. They had double-digit growth. Now, it was on top of a 2009 year, which was terrible. 2011 is supposed to be the same. It's going to be double-digit growth. But will permanent jobs follow that? People and companies have been hoping for a new normal, and the new normal is really the old normal that people have been hoping for. But that reality is not going to be happening, and it's not coming back. The reality is that companies are doing more with less. And when they are needing people, they are finding a large talent mismatch between the skills of the people looking for work and the needs of their companies. There was the industrial age, there was the information age. Now we are really in a new age, and we want to refer to it as the human age. It's really the individual's choice, the ability to work anywhere and anytime, and especially with the new technology of today and the future. And technology is making it possible for young people to start businesses for themselves, and with technology, the barriers for entry are very, very low. Look at San Diego today, still with double-digit unemployment and people who are working and do not live near their work. We recently did a talent shortage survey and found that 30% of the companies are struggling to find jobs they desperately need to succeed. Jobs like skilled manual trades, technicians, engineers, accounting and finance, production operators. What new practices will we need to attract, develop, and retain talent? To end my part of the formal remarks, I just want to leave you with 3 questions. Where do we find the people to work at our companies now with the skills we need and in the future when the baby boomers really do retire? How do we work with the Generation Y, those people born between 1980 and 1995? And are we going to, in our companies, be flexible when we hire people to allow them to work where they want to work, how they want to work, and when they want to work? Thank you.
Our last panelist is Bob Watkins, who is the owner of R.J. Watkins, and it's an executive firm, executive search firm.
Thank you, Mary Ann. Trifurcation seems to be an issue today where we're talking about various things that come in threes. So I'd like to ask a question on trifurcation this morning, and that is, how many in here already have jobs and are working? Raise your hands. How many in here are looking for jobs and need some assistance? Only 2. That's great. 3. There we go. And how many of you are working but you feel like you're underutilized or you just don't have that? So there's a few people in that regard. Well, the interesting is all of you that have jobs, that's great news. And what we don't have to do is worry about you too much, but the little bit of advice that we can give you or I can give you is that keep your training up, keep your creativity up, and keep your value up to the employer or the organization. And if you're the owner of that organization, keep yourself moving ahead a little bit. If you're in a job search perspective, that's a little tougher situation because you've got a lot of work to do and there's ways you can get that done, and it's easy to get that done. This room is full of, I think Sherm said this morning, 700 people. So there are 700 contacts in here, or if you're the 3, so there's 697 contacts for you to be able to go to today. And those of you that are underutilized or underemployed, your job is relatively simple, and that is, I noticed in the program this morning there are a number of pages that show how you can get continuing education, mentoring, and all kinds of other activities. Now, that's the good news. The bad news is I'm the 3rd speaker, so these guys have said everything that I was going to say, and all my notes of all the details and stuff I left on the table because I knew I was going 3rd, and Jim Waring will cover every detail that you possibly can get, and Mel will give you the forecast of the future. But saying that, let me just have a few comments here, and that is that we all know we've been in a tough time. Every person in this room has been affected, as is everybody in this country has been affected by this downturn, and 2010 was a near-death situation for all of us. 2011 was a time for recovery. Last year, the first and second quarter were pretty poor. Third quarter and fourth quarter began to turn around. We thought we were going to see the light coming on in the economy, and it really hasn't happened. And Mel's comments where we said about the new norm is the existing place we are, and that is things have to be different and we have to make them different. This room is filled with creative minds that understand how to take a lousy situation and create an opportunity out of it. And when you look at the things that you're doing, it's easy for me to talk about it from a job search point of view. My job, or my business, was whacked 75% down in 2009, almost 80% in 2010, and is now coming back to where I'm probably at the old norm of 2009. Our business, my business in particular, is we're retained by organizations and companies to find those key people that they need at the senior management level, CEOs and boards of directors and so forth. And it's been really, really hard. But when you peel back the onion and take a look at what's going on across the transom, you find that companies and organizations look to make adjustments. And where you have seen some inventory building in manufacturing, you still don't see a lot of employment in manufacturing coming on. Why? Is because companies have figured out that they need to be more productive. And so it goes into the comment that Mel had, is that we're just not getting into we're in a jobless recovery in this country. So some of the efforts that we need to look at is continuing, how do we then take the folks who have been out of work, bring them into the workplace, and that is through workforce education, workforce retraining, and those folks in the room who have jobs, underemployed, and don't have jobs, retraining and keeping your edge is extremely important. As I look at some of the things that when Mark invited me to speak here with you all, I started thinking about how can I make this so it's industry specific and not so esoteric that we don't understand. But as you begin to look at what's happening in the industry, the construction industry is really on its knees as a result of what's happening in the residential economy, residential construction. What we do see is we do see some opportunities coming through in the industrial and manufacturing areas where leases are being reworked and so forth. And then as you begin to look at investment or the investor side of the economy, so where all the things that we were doing before were pretty transparent, where we are today is what's the job of today and tomorrow, and it really is in the investment side. The banks in New York and the commercial investment banks in particular are hiring like crazy. They cannot find enough people to come back into that marketplace. And if I were living in New York, my business would probably be a whole lot better than it is living in San Diego from a perspective of what we do on a senior executive level. But the commercial investment banking market is strong. I was talking to Mary Ann the other day. She called to talk about the panel. Her company in the mortgage business is hiring. But when you talk to her about what she's hiring for, it's not necessarily what we would have thought some time ago, people to process a lot of things. It's really in the sales and marketing side where people are actually beginning to go out and from a business development point of view. So we're in the process of redevelopment, reinvention, and I think the adjustment we all have to make is you are making that in your business. And some of the greatest people who are able to reinvent themselves are lawyers. I have my friends from Loose Forward sitting over here, and I can tell you their real estate group was pretty decimated in terms of the activity, but many of them have been able to readjust, refocus, and reposition themselves in terms of workout capability and other kinds of activities which you do. So being patient in a marketplace like this is easy to say, but it's important to do. Reinvention is extremely important. And then taking a look at the opportunities. When you've got a down market, it's an up market someplace else. So where you're seeing things changing, you're changing with them. And I guess my advice is about the same. Those that are unemployed, we can work with you. Those that are underemployed, you can work for yourself. And those folks who have good opportunities, keep the edge up so that you're maximizing the opportunity for not only you, but those who work with you. And on that, thank you.
They all have jobs. Well, I have a question for Mel. With temporary, do you see an increase in hiring temps because of the potential increase in health costs?
Sorry about that. I don't think it's because of the health costs. I think it's really so that companies can stay flexible. There really is that uncertainty out there of whether or not their busyness right now is going to really keep going. And therefore, it's perfect to work with temporaries on that.
You know, my reaction to
Go ahead.
that also is, I guess I'm on, yes, is that the cost of employees these days. So if you're an employer, unemployment insurance. Unemployment insurance in this country in the last 5 years has doubled from about 35 billion, and by 2015 will be 60 billion. So the cost of employees, not just in health care benefits, but the whole cost is going to have to be looked at. And so hiring temporary people will probably be more prevalent than going to the full hire of folks.
So Bob, do you find that when you're placing an executive and they have to move from one area to another, that it's more difficult because of the housing situation and negative equity in homes?
The answer to that one's yes, but taking that a step further, relocation, and take companies like Qualcomm. Qualcomm is not relocating as many people into San Diego as they may have done in the past, and what they're looking at opportunities where the people are. So people in engineering capacities, for instance, software engineers, rather than trying to bring them into San Diego and then have all the other companies steal them, what they're doing, like a lot of other companies are doing, is taking a look at where are the pods or the centers of excellence where engineers are. Huntsville, Alabama, Winnipeg, Canada, all kinds of other locations. So relocation in here is not quite what it was going to be before. On the executive level, it's not as much of an issue.
Any other questions?
It was about the skills and the education of people. I think we have a real problem as far as K through 12 education. We are very lucky in San Diego with a very good higher education system, but K through 12 is a huge problem. And in San Diego and the country, you're not finding enough people wanting to get into the sciences and the maths and the technologies. And how do you get young people excited about those fields and wanting to go in there? And then if they are excited about it and want to go in there, are they getting the proper education in it? Because are the teachers in those levels really having the expertise to teach that? And that's really needed. When you look at our universities, you're not finding enough people in there who want to be engineers, who want to be IT people. And those are the type of fields we're looking for today in our community, but really around the country.
If I could respond to that also. There was recently awarded to Clean Tech San Diego with a number of other partners an EDGE grant. It's an education grant. And the specific point was we have this new industry called biofuels, algae to fuel. Well, what are the skill sets? If those industries take off, what are the skill sets that are needed? So we're working with our partners in the local community colleges to design a curricula just to meet those needs, to anticipate the needs. Because there is a recognition that if you don't get in front of where the skill set, then you won't meet it. But there is some effort being made to do that. And an enormous number of the jobs in the clean tech cluster are what you would call blue-collar jobs, to use the old terminology. There's a lot of opportunity for installers, for retrofitting, tremendous opportunities that I think the real estate industry in general has not dug into deeply enough about how you can get your folks back to work on taking advantage, again, of largely off-the-shelf energy efficiency products that generally can finance and get good returns for people. And I think if somebody really went after it, could create a lot of jobs.
Do you have another question?
I have the same question, but maybe I can expand on that. All speakers to address whether there are structural reforms that can be implemented for K through 12 education that would improve the situation. I mean specific reforms.
Wow.
Well,
Sure, I
maybe
just don't know
should,
what they are.
Maybe I could take a shot at that. Having been the chairman of the board of the San Diego County Board of Education for about 6 years, there's a lot of things that could be done in education just to allow a little bit more freedom of action for teachers. And also from an accountability perspective, making sure that there's more accountability in education, but not what it's based on, building upon just to test for testing's sakes, but create a system that's more fluid, that allows the teacher more flexibility to do the things they're doing, but make them accountable. I think that we hear the old saw about they're not being paid enough. Teachers have a pretty good pay system. It could be better, sure, if you want to put some accountabilities in there. When I looked at our contract with labor, it was about a 400-page contract, and it was 2 lines on accountability, teacher accountability. And so when I look at it, I would say to myself, things need to be done in a way that can allow teachers more time, provide more accountability, but at the same time, when you stop and think about Charlie Sheen getting 1 million tweets, and a teacher can't get one, that's pretty sad for our economy. When you try to look for people who are going into technology or technology-related fields of science and others, it's very difficult when you get that kind of behavior on the side of the general public, and your kids want to go off and be a Charlie Sheen rather than being an engineer or a scientist or whatever it might happen to be. So from my perspective, parenting is probably the biggest reform we could have in schools, where parents actually become a little bit more involved in their kids' education. If the kids don't have parents, then a mentoring process of some kind to support those people is extremely important. And I think if you look at studies, and I was with Bob Kelly yesterday over at the San Diego Foundation, they have done studies bringing experts into this area. And what they found in taking a look at the difference between a criminal and a successful entrepreneur, what was the difference? The criminal didn't have anybody who cared for him or her. The successful entrepreneur had people who cared all along the way. And it sends a message to all of us who are parents, is that one of the biggest things we can do is help your neighbor's child or help you. Ask them how their day was and what did they accomplish, and that is enough to trigger them to say, someone's looking out after me. So parenting, in that general term, is extremely important and will drive a lot of the kids to the right direction rather than the wrong direction. So a lot of the decision making in public education, while we look at the schools, the teachers are there 8 hours a day with your children, and you spend maybe an hour or 2 with them at night. It's tough. So you've got to be stronger parents, got to be stronger uncles, aunts, mentors, big brothers, big sisters, and provide that leadership to the kids who are growing up as we did. We're fortunate that we're here in this room.
And I think businesses have a role to play in this also. I think bringing in students to be interns in your company, going into the schools and being mentors to the students in there. I think students need to see a role model, and especially having some young engineers and young IT people and young scientists going out into the schools, where people in the schools can actually see what is happening, what my job is like, and all of a sudden see, light that flame of, this is what I want to be doing in the future, and this is where the future is.
I don't know the answer. I do think philosophically, if we could stop demonizing and start debating, it might help.
Right, I agree.
In general, to come up with these things. And at a broader level, there's a lot of talk about engineers, the lack of engineers. And I know Malin Burnham, who's here, and a lot of Malin's colleagues for years have tried to get our immigration rules changed so that every foreign student who graduates from a U.S. university with an engineering degree gets a B-1 visa and can't get it through the Congress. And these are people that have had the privilege and opportunity to come to America, and they want to stay here, and we educate them and push them out. It's a tragic brain drain, and that seems to me to be so easy, and we can't quite pull it off. Malin, I see you had your...
Marianne?
Yes.
We all know historically in this country, jobs have come from small employers. The job growth in numbers doesn't come from General Motors. It comes from small companies. Maybe we need to do more, and I'm looking at Jim here, maybe your clean tech and other high-tech clusters need to do more working with commercial and industrial realtors in this room to think in terms of incubator space. They're in various disciplines to start to give, there's a lot of empty space. They're not getting rent, And so why not put some new companies in there that are just startups? One or two people is the way they start them, and all of a sudden, with synergism, one thing or another, they grow into real businesses and real jobs. I think we can do a lot more in this area.
Right.
Yep. If I could, Malin's absolutely right, and actually there is some progress being made. ComNexus recently started, they worked out with the Irvine company that donated some space in UTC, and they have an incubator there that is doing very well. Roy Moore does a fantastic job with his team, and they have a number of companies, some of whom have already graduated and gotten funding. Before Fred Mass left CCDC, Fred was working really hard to put an incubator downtown, and which could be very stimulating to downtown, and identified the building. Whether or not without Fred's energy there, that will continue. It's still on the table, but it's lost a little bit of its emphasis. There's if you look on a website at a program called Plug and Play, which is in San Jose, which is an extraordinary incubator. There are some people that are working with Plug and Play to have a Plug and Play in San Diego, and whether or not they can pull it off, I don't know. But Cleantech San Diego and our partners are working on this, and we certainly are trying. Obviously, it's a tiny organization, but we're trying to do that, to support incubator efforts and to nurture the small companies, because you're right, for every synthetic genomics that does a $500 million deal with Exxon, there are dozens and dozens and dozens of people out there plugging away, and there are great companies out there somewhere, and it's a matter of nurturing them.
There are, from what I know, just recently looking at it and talking to Bob Kelly over at the foundation, looking at things, there are 5 new incubators that have just been kicked off in San Diego County. There's one just recently up in Kearny Mesa called Ansir, which is a more progressive plug-and-play type of incubator. The incubator, accelerator, those kinds of activities for the long time have not been very good from a real estate point of view because of the fact that the company doesn't have any money. They need space and they need services, but they can't form them. So when the incubators were formed, they kind of fell out of business very quickly because they just couldn't pencil. If you look at what Rory has done with ComNexus, they've got free space. They offer free space to the companies. They have a graduation perspective, and they're kicking out 2, 3 companies a year of which to get out, which become then candidates, Malin, for the things that you're talking about from a real estate perspective.
And if I could just finish by saying, and that helps the landlord, the Irvine company, because again, it helps to brand their building. They get people in and out of the building that sees their space, that is, you know, the quality they have. So they've obviously made a decision that it helps them as well as helping the community.
And I think what you're doing, if I can final comment on that, is I think if we look at the old economy where you actually think about a product, you get some venture capital behind it to create that into a reality, and then it goes into a manufacturing location to expand or grow or something. That whole paradigm is changing. And the manufacturing is not growing it's not going away as much as we thought, but it's not growing as much. What's happening is globalization is allowing people to import technology, get it capitalized, send laboratory work back to Europe or to Asia, wherever it happens to be. And then what we're looking at is then the whole supply chain, the distribution system is also changing as well. So what we're looking at in San Diego is, on the high end in spectrum, is innovation and the execution of innovation to the next level, and then the parsing out of that across the globe to reach the customer base. So I think what you're seeing is a little bit different than what we've had in the past.
Okay, one more question back there.
My name is Jordan Marks. I'm with the Office of State Senator Joel Anderson. And Mr. Watkins, I was curious, what could we be doing on the state level to assist in bringing quality leadership into the state to fill the CEO roles and the other roles that that you look to fulfill in your industry?
Boy, that's a loaded question, and I'll give you one answer. Make changes with the people who are in office in Sacramento. Get them out and get good people there who can make things happen. The problems that we have are because we elected people who didn't want to do what they were elected to do. So I don't care whether the Republicans or Democrats or independents or whatever they are, if they're not functioning in the jobs that they're doing, get them out. Each one of you get involved politically in not only your industry segment, but what's going on in the population. We need people like Scott Walker in Wisconsin who's pushing the envelope to change things to get to a place where we can have a vibrant economy again. And I'm not advocating we go chasing all the unions out of Dodge. It wouldn't be a bad idea, but you know, and that'll give Loose Forward's labor department some work. But I think we just made, I mean, you asked a question, and I mean, it's a hot button of mine. I know Steve Quinn is over here, and he and I work together on a lot of things that we're doing in San Diego politically, but change the face of what we're dealing, not only in Sacramento, but in San Diego. And when you look at what makes our economy grow, it's the culture of doing business. And if you don't have a culture of doing business, you're not going to be able to grow and continue to evolve as a community. So the culture of doing business is having a little less regulation, a little bit more opportunity to make things happen and grow, and then on a state level, compete with the world rather than trying to close yourself off to the world. We have, you got me started, and I'm sorry to take up so much time. I'm pretty passionate about it.
So one more question.
It's nice to see your passion. And imagine that accountability for teachers. What a concept. And my hat off to Malin Burnham. If you want to see what entrepreneurs are doing with junior achievement in schools, Malin puts his money where his mouth is. Go look up BizTown for junior achievement. My question is, I'm a small business. We employ 50, 60 people in 4 or 5 different states. On the list of where we look to add people, California on that 4 or 5, in terms of which state we want to add people, is like 12. The cost of doing business in California relative to the other states that we do business in is crazy. How do we change that so that we get jobs to San Diego and to California?
I go to the previous question.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think that's the same answer.
You know,
Well, but let me take it from a different point of view. I'm not going to sit here and for a minute minimize the difficulty of doing business in California. But at the same time, during my brief time with the mayor and my time and all the stuff I've done, we beat ourselves up too much. I mean, you know, the glass half empty or half full? Half full. At Clean Tech San Diego, we're working with a company, with other partners, EDC and other partners, to attract a German manufacturing of concentrated solar panels. And we're close. We're competing with Phoenix. We may or may not get them. But you know what? They come from Germany. They don't think we're overregulated. They see a market of 35 million people. They see a state that is trying to lead the future of the country. And they see an opportunity to sell into that. They see a local utility, SDG&E, that is saying, if you want us to buy your solar arrays, you have to make them in our state. So those are all things, and this would be 400 jobs if they come here. We'll know in the next 90 days. So I think if we quit just, and I agree they're structural things, Bob, absolutely. But at the same time, in the interim, this is one of the most vibrant markets in the world. People want to do business here because there are people to sell to. There's money, there's energy, there's entrepreneurship. And if we focus more on that instead of on the other, you know, I think it can move. I think it can create positive outcomes.
And it's where you're going to attract your workers also. People are going to be wanting to come to San Diego and to California, and you need all the things that attract workers. We have a great higher education system here. We have innovation here. And we have a complete community. You need a community with culture and with sporting activities and with sports teams, but people want a complete community. And when it gets to the labor crunch, and we are going to be going into a labor crunch because of the skill shortage, you're going to be looking for a place that attracts people, and San Diego is going to be the place that attracts the people.
That was a positive note. So, Mark, is it time? Okay.
I just have a follow-on.
It's over, Bob.
Okay, I think that's it. Fair.
So that ship sailed, as they say?
That's it. You're done.
Thank you very much.
I just have a follow-on.
It's over, Bob.
Okay, I think that's it. There.
So that ship sailed, as they say?
That's it. You're done.
Thank you very much.